there, it's Amanda here from Lolli Lulu Crafts, and this is our Hero Arts monthly kit, and this is our second video because we always have two for the monthly kits, one showing the contents of the kit and this one which is the project. If you want to make sure that you don't miss any videos, but in particular when there's two like this, then do go onto the link below this video where it says corresponding blog post, and it will take you to the blog post which will have both videos, and it will also have a section where you can subscribe to the blog post and you will get notified every time there is a video, and only when there's a video, that is the only emails you'll get. Okay, so I'm starting out with the stamp set that came in the kit, and I'm just using my normal Fiskars stamper here because I'm going to basically stamp all over the paper, and when I'm doing some stamping like that, it's a lot simpler and quicker to use like a stamper like this, because then I don't have to keep moving the paper around and working out where to put the stamp. You can obviously do it pretty easily with the stamp platform as well, but obviously it's just a little bit quicker with this because you can just ink and plonk, as I like to call it, a very technical term. So we're starting out with the elephant here, but I'm basically going to be using a lot of the stamps. I'm not going to use every single animal, but pretty much there, and I'm going to do a lot of repeats of things like the foliage, etc. And I'm using the ink that was enclosed in the kit. I didn't actually read up, but I assumed that since they enclosed the watercolours, that this would be an ink that was suitable for watercolours. I don't know much about this particular ink, so I wasn't sure, but I assumed, and you'll see later that my assumption was correct. So here you can see I've done a load of stamping, and you can see there's quite a few repeats of particularly of the foliage, and then we're going to get on to the watercolouring. And for that, of course, the reason I'm doing the watercolours is this mini palette was included in the kit, and I thought it would be quite fun. Normally I might be tempted to use my markers or something. It's not something I particularly naturally go to straight away, is watercolours, and I should do. It's really fun to use, but I thought since they're in the kit I want to make sure I make use of them. So I've just got a bit of palette on the side there with some water, and I can mix the paint and obviously just collect water and use the little paint palette on here. So we're going to just not bore you to death with me chatting through all of this. I'm going to speed it up and give you some music. So enjoy the painting.
17, met you in the parking lot after class, said you liked my polka dots, pick me up every day after that. We were attached at the hip or something like that. Time flies, now you're on the East Coast, missing my best friend more than anybody knows. See your face, maybe at the holidays, thinking back, things were pretty great. Missed your call again, it's a 2-hour difference. Wanna make this right tonight. Take me back, can you take me back? Baby, all the way to the easy days. Take me back, can you take me back? I don't wanna fight, I don't care who's right. Can you take me back? Home again, everything looks the same. Past the place where we had our first date. Miss the days of young love till they fade, wishing things never had to change. Missed your call again, it's a 2-hour difference. Wanna make this right tonight. Take me back, can you take me back? Baby, all the way to the easy days. Take me back, can you take me back? I don't wanna fight, I don't care who's right. Can you take me back? Maybe we can run away, maybe we can find a place. It doesn't have to the goods to save you from what they call the end. Oh, 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 let's pretend I don't feel like giving in. If nothing else, I'll imagine bed. Until then, let's pretend. You've got so much life in you that you've got to touch. So breathe in from your head to your toes. Feel it like you know. Oh, 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 oh. Let's pretend. Yeah, 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 yeah. That I've got the goods to save you from what they call the end. Let's pretend that I feel like giving in. If nothing else, I'll imagine bed. Until then, just a simple word is more than before. It's all we've got now, so spread them far and deep. So it's all you see, it's all we've got now. I feel like pretending everything. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I've got the goods to save you from what they call the end. Oh, 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 oh. Let's pretend. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That I've got the goods to save you from what they call the end. Oh, 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 oh. Giving in. If nothing else, I'll imagine her. Until then, let's pretend.
So there we are, all painted. Now this isn't watercolour card that I use. This is the Create and Craft core card, and that I got a big bundle of it, and it's really nice thick card, and I particularly wanted a really good heavyweight card. This is 300 GSM, and so I did need to be a little bit more cautious with the amount of water I put on, and actually I think it worked out quite well because it was slightly more intense on the paint than I would normally do, so it was a different kind of watercolouring for me, which I quite enjoyed that effect of it. It was almost like colouring in a way, which was, as I say, slightly different for me. Now you saw I just chopped the card up with scissors. That was just so that I could get the elements through my die cutting machine. I then just finding each of the relevant dies or the applicable dies, and I'm going to pop that through. Now for this I'm just showing you one of them, but what I will do is I will get a bundle and I will put them through, like sort of a couple through at one time to make it quicker. You see there I've put I did the rest of that sheet all in one go. Then once I'd cut all of that out, I then did take those extra elements that weren't part of the stamp set, the dies that went with the stamp set. There was some extra dies for vines, and I cut those out a couple of times to give me some vines, and then I went over my little creatures and also the foliage with some markers just to add some accents. So in this case I've got some white. The gel pen wasn't that brilliant, but it was good enough just for what I needed. I also added some black dots to the centre of the eyes, and I actually went over some of the foliage with some green markers just to accent some of the give it a little bit more depth in places. So as you saw, that was all of that done. So now we need to make our card base. We're going to put all of those pieces to one side, and I've got some cardstock here, Stampin' Up, and just that core cardstock, and I've got the tattered lace dies, and you saw that was the 6th die, so the 6th one in from the biggest. And basically I've got A4 sheets here. I've got 2 of the white, 2 of the green. I can't remember what the green is off the top of my head, but I'll put it all on my list with the links. And basically I'm putting the rectangle in the center to create the aperture. It's the aperture piece that I want to keep. The center bit, put in your storage. So then I want to cut basically an inch around each of the sides. So I'm using the straight line on the inside of the aperture against the straight line that's marked on the actual guillotine here, because it could be that you hadn't quite put the die correct. So you want to not line it up at the top edge of the bar there. You want to make sure you line it up on the line to start with till you get a straight piece, and then you cut out all of those to create your frames. Now if you've got a die big enough, you could obviously use a die to make those. However, I realized when I then turned it to try, because I needed another piece to create the back of the card and some wings, you'll see why in a minute, I realized that it was too tall, so I needed to adjust the frames so that two of the sides were not an inch, they were slightly less than an inch, not quite 3/4. It really was basically to make it the same height or width, but it's height in this case, but the same width as your A4 piece of card. So the first one, the white one, I cut to the size of the frame plus an inch each side. Now what you'll see is I'm scoring it, but I'm scoring one side at 1 inch and I'm scoring one side at 1 inch less an eighth. So that's important because of what I'm going to do. You need just that extra bit of margin, because what you'll see here is we're creating a trifold card, and when we're folding one inside of the other, if it was all exactly the same size and just that eighth makes enough, it wouldn't fit, they wouldn't fold into themselves. And what you want is each piece, the frames to cover up and the frames to match up, so it was important to do that. So next I wanted to use before I stuck all these together, I wanted to use my template mask rather, and some of those beautiful Distress Oxide inks. Now I'm not bothering to stick this down. It's not important if it slightly moves. It actually looks really effective if you get a slight shadow effect with it. It looks quite cool. And all I'm doing is I'm literally using one little smoothie egg, as I call them, and I'm just using like one side of the bottom of the egg, I'm using one colour, the other side I'm using the other colour, and then the pointy end that I'm holding, hence why I'm getting really inky fingers, is for the paler colour. And basically I'm taking the two darker colours, so that I can't remember what they're called now, again I'll list them all, and then putting those on first, and then I'm taking the paler colour, I think it was moss or something, and I'm using that to kind of stop the other two being blobs and sort of blend them in and smooth it out very slightly. And then you might need to go over it again just with the darker colours, just if you have over added too much of that softer colour, because the softer colour is almost the same colour as the card, but as you can see it just blends the edges of the two stronger colours. And as you can see there, I just then went over the brighter colour just to give it a little bit of a oomph. And then with this bottom part, I'm not worrying about the fact that there's a slight line when you do it. It's not going to show enough, and I'm not worrying about the fact that I've clearly twisted it. It doesn't matter, it's not important. What I would remind you is that Distress Oxides stay wet for a long time. Personally, I would let them dry naturally because you don't want to warp the card, and you need to give it a little bit of time just to make sure they're 100% dry, because they really do stay wet for a while, which is great. It's what makes them blend so well. So then I'm taking this piece. By the way, this piece was the same size as our frame, but obviously without a piece cut out of the middle, and that's going to stick down on the inside. Now you can see here my little flaps are folding inwards, so that you want to make sure you stick it on that way round. And basically what we're doing is creating this trifold card. Now you could, at this point, if you wanted to, you could add acetate to your two aperture pieces that I'm doing here. I didn't want to because I felt that the acetate could slightly soften the elements behind, and I wanted to give a stronger effect of all the layering that I'm going to be doing. So what I did was, instead of putting the acetate and then adding the green layer to my white frame, I'm just literally adding the green frame to the white frame, and straight away. And the reason I've got two pieces is I really needed the strength. So I worked out which one went where. I think one was just slightly better fit. I must have very slightly cut it differently, but if you've cut it right, it shouldn't matter. You should just add them on to the sides. And then just using, on all of this, I've been using my Cosmic Shimmer glue because it's really strong, but it also gives you some wriggle room. So once it's dry, it's absolutely as strong, but it gives you the time to get it right. And particularly with this bit, you really need to pop them on like that, but then you need to turn it over and you need to put it together, and then position them and wriggle them into place. So you can see there it's very slightly out, so I'm just giving that a little push over, and now you can see it's a perfect match, and the aperture matches perfectly. And that's why I wanted that slight 1/8 of an inch difference, because it sat inside so beautifully. So now we're taking our elements. So first of all, I'm just fiddling around positioning them. I did do this actually over the die. I took the metal die before I got to actually putting any of the card together, and I sat down and I put the metal die on the table and I did a rough idea of how I thought it would look. It's not 100% right, but it gave me an idea, and then I photographed it. I always find that's quite helpful. The good thing about that is obviously it's single dimension at that point, but it does give you some idea of how it's going to sit and what you're thinking. So you're going to start, and first of all, with the skeleton, as it were. So the bare bones, the bits that are the important bits. So obviously like the trunks, because things will be working around the trunk. The elephant, clearly quite a focal piece. He's actually the only animal I put on at this point. The rest of the animals I actually put on at the end. They're not the most important element, but he was important to situate and get in the right place. I say he's the only animal. Actually, I did actually put my flamingo on, but anyway, so then I'm just putting these pieces on, but you need to remember, that it's now going to be 3-dimensional. So if you've tried it out on your flat table using the dies, the reason I use the die, by the way, is because it's obviously the size of the aperture, so it sort of told me roughly what would work, and you've now got to remember though that it is 3-dimensional, so you want to think about where in the 3 layers you want to situate each element, and so that you get that dimension. But you also need to think about a little bit what each layer looks like when you open it up, because particularly the back layer, I found you had to be most careful with this one. You'll see here it looks a little funny at this point, with palm leaves just sort of floating in the air, and the sort of bundle of reeds just sitting there. It looks kind of strange. So we're going to have to kind of work on that in due course. The other thing you need to be aware of, perhaps that you don't need to worry about normally so much, is that any glue that seeps out, you need to wipe away, because you don't want to stick layers together. And again, this is the advantage of using the wet glue, because it gives you the opportunity to stick your piece down. I mean, obviously at this point, some of them I'm just sort of positioning, having a look, and then I'll get the glue. So you'll see here I've done sort of the first layers, and then I'm going and I'm working on the 2 bottom corners a little bit, and I'm working on that right hand corner, all the different layers, and adding the elements at the different layers, and then I'll move over and work onto the other side. So you want to work a section at a time, but get those sort of big sort of skeleton pieces down first, as I said, like the trunks and the elephant, and then start working on the next elements, and looking like here I'm thinking, well, does that going to show? It's quite nice when they kind of just peek up, and you obviously need to remember that you are, again, that the glue can seep through, so you want to be careful to check it quite quickly. You do want to use the wet glue. I know it'd be tempting to use perhaps a tape or something and just tape it. The disadvantage of that, absolutely don't recommend it at all, is that you can't move them. And you saw with that other piece just now, I looked at it, put it down where I thought it needed to be. I think you'll see it here even, I'm not sure, but then I needed to move it because it wasn't quite high enough. So you need to have that option to be able to move it, and if you've got tape, you're not going to be able to do that. Now this part here, to a certain extent, I was actually adding these 2 elements to make it look better from the inside. It actually, so far, it could show through to the front as well, but I was more that sort of little piece of corn on the back there was really more to try and make that look a little nicer on the back there. But then I've gone back to the front, well, the left corners, and I'd added a few bits, but now I'm just doing a bit more, and you can see here how the dimension really works. So I'm sort of fairly happy with that as it is, and compared to my piece that I did with the die as my kind of rough bit, I actually had a few pieces left, which allowed me just to add a little bit to the inside there. Also, I slightly moved some bits around, so like this palm leaf I put here. Now that's actually the front. I just need to swap that over. I want that on the middle element, so I'm closing that over, and I'm then sliding it in, because that way I get to see that it's going to sit where I want it to. Whereas if I left that front open, it's kind of a little bit of guesswork and I might mess up my piece. But it was just a few pieces that were sort of done differently that I gave them the opportunity to slightly change it around. As I said, I was trying just to get myself a few bits of foliage just to put on the back there, or the inside really, I suppose, but it's like the back of the dimension, just so that I had those few bits left over so that I could make that inside look a little better. Now clearly at the end of the day you can just stamp and die cut and colour and die cut some more pieces. Truthfully, I was being lazy. I really didn't want to do it again. I didn't want to do any more painting. I'd done a load. This is only kind of work out at about a 30-minute video, maybe 25 minutes, whatever. This was a good 2.5 hours of footage that I've got here. And then there was between the painting, I left it overnight. Then I left it overnight for the drying of the mask stenciling. I keep calling it a mask. The stenciling, not that it needed overnight entirely, but I just wanted to be sure. So I just wasn't really feeling it to do some more painting. But as I said, I just managed to leave myself a few bits so that I could make the inside look a bit better. And then it was just time to add my little animals, which I really enjoy putting those on. It kind of just finishes it off, doesn't it? But how effective does it look? The other little thing that you don't particularly see me do, but I have done, is when I stuck like that branch down there and then the monkey was on it, you'll see if you're not careful, it kind of, if it's straight, it looks like it's sticking up. So you actually want to very gently curve it downwards in towards the back of the card, the inside of the card, just very, very slightly, and that gives it the illusion then that it's not poking up. It actually makes it look not kind of like it's going to catch. Now we put on my lovely leopard, and you'll see there I lifted up that bit of foliage there because I'd actually decided in hindsight that I wanted to pop his little paw behind it. I felt like it looked better. So then the last thing that I really want to do is add my sentiment, and I've used again one of the sentiments from the stamp set, and then I just used my Sue Wilson flag, stitch flags die set, cut that out, and then there was a perfect little gap. I was hoping there would be a gap. I was actually thinking it was going to be the middle left hand side, but it actually turned out to be the top right, and I just thought that worked out really, really nicely just on the back there. And again, it just added a little something to the inside. You can see in the bottom corner I was just trying to put a little something. You might feel you want to actually do a few more leaves and just put some more foliage down the bottom in that on the inside than I did. If I wasn't being lazy, I probably would have done a little bit more on that inside corner, but otherwise I think it turned out really cool. I was actually so pleased with how it came out, and you can see now I think why I said I didn't want to use acetate, because I felt like you would lose, like if you're going through 2 sheets of acetate to see that back layer, you would definitely lose some of the definition of those elements, and the whole point of a card like this is to have that 3-dimensional look. But anyway, that is it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed. Apologies that it is a week late. Don't forget to go on across to the blog post, link in the paragraph below this video if you're on YouTube, to see this blog post, which will have all the photographs, links to the products used, of course the other video that goes with this set this week, and of course you can subscribe to my website if you haven't already, and please be assured that the only thing you will get is an email telling you every time there is a post. Okay, so thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week for another video. Bye for now. Bye.
He likes the sunny side, she likes the shady. Diner every day, 8 in the morning. Dear, they're in their 70s. That could be you and me. Have you ever pictured us in the future? Is this too much, or have you ever wondered? Look at me, come on, let's dream. I wanna share my socks with you. I wanna cook pancakes at 2, and all of a sudden we're inspired to write a song on the kitchen counter. I see you in my thoughts and in my dreams. I hope that you see me too. You're still teaching me guitar. Oh baby, you can do it, and I complain that it's too hard.